And then he said something to me that like, he goes, do you want to see where Tupac is buried? And I'm like, I don't, what do you mean? Because everyone knows Tupac's ashes were spread off the Pacific and Malibu. He's like, oh, yeah, no.
For decades, Tupac's death has been hip-hop's biggest ghost story. But now, in 2025, the streets are buzzing again. A secret grave in Carolina. Diddy's name resurfacing. And a trial ducking justice. The truth isn't buried, it's breathing through the cracks. And when it finally speaks, you might never sleep again. Somebody's empire is about to crumble. Let's begin. Jeff Pearlman's bombshell biography exposes Tupac's hidden grave and the family war over his estate.
So he died, it's interesting, he died in Vegas, and he was there for the Bruce Seldon-Mike Tyson fight. A very, very bad fight.
Jeff Pearlman just did what nobody else could, he found Tupac's actual grave. And the way it happened reads like something straight out of a movie. For nearly 3 decades, the world believed Pac was fully cremated. No grave. No final resting place. Just ashes scattered across the globe and some allegedly smoked by the outlaws. But Pearlman's new book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, flips that entire narrative on its head, and the hip-hop community is still trying to process it. The sports biographer turned his attention to hip-hop's most complex figure, spending 3 years conducting nearly 700 interviews. He talked to everyone, family members like Sekiwa Shakur and stepbrother Mopring, classmates, crack dealers, movie co-stars, Black Panthers, prison inmates, death row insiders, and even Tupac's high school girlfriend, who shared over 100 love letters. The book paints Pac not as the mythic thug icon, but as a heartbroken, lonely genius trapped by his own need for validation. Reviewers are calling it remarkable, unflinching, and the definitive account even hardcore fans didn't see coming.
And the definitive account that even hardcore fans didn't see coming.
I interviewed like some family members, just distant family members who happen to live in Lumberton, and one guy goes, hey, do you want to tour the house? I'm the caretaker. And I'm like, oh. So I just ripped my pants on a fence for absolutely nothing. You could just take me. I'm like, yeah, I didn't even tell him I went. He's like, yeah. He drives me there. I'm literally inside of Feni Shakur's house with the caretaker. She's died in 2016, so all her boxes are packed up. Here are her books, here are stuff. And then he said something to me that like, he goes, you want to see where Tupac is buried? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because everyone knows Tupac's ashes were spread off the Pacific and Malibu. He's like, oh, yeah, no. He has a grave here on the property. I'm like, I didn't let on, but in my head, I'm like, wait, what?
Here's where it gets wild. Pearlman was in Lumberton, North Carolina, a remote town of 20,000 people, researching Afeni Shakur's life when he met Dante Powers, Tupac's cousin and property caretaker. Powers was heading to the abandoned house Afeni bought in 2000 and invited Pearlman along. Inside were only boxes of Afeni's belongings. Then Powers asked the question that changed everything.
He's like, yeah, come on. And in the front, it's in the book actually, the pictures, in the front yard, in an abandoned lot in Lumberton, North Carolina, is Tupac Shakur's headstone, like right there. And I'm standing over it. And I would say like the full circle moment for a guy writing a book is standing over the headstone that no one even knows exists of the person you're writing about. And that was like a chills moment for me, being there with Tupac's grave. And the whole book was just a journey of wild and crazy and fun and interesting.
Afeni Shakur purchased the 56-acre plot in 2000, 4 years after Pac's death, building an expansive house behind wrought iron gates. She lived there from 2002 until 2016, even marrying local preacher Gus Davis in 2004. Their marriage collapsed in March 2016, shortly before she moved to a Sausalito houseboat. After Afeni's death in May 2016 at age 69, the property sat vacant, overgrown and forgotten. No visitors. No shrine. Nothing like the pilgrimage sites for Jim Morrison in Paris or Jimi Hendrix in Seattle. Just an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere, with one of hip-hop's greatest legends buried in the front yard. Why the secrecy? Pearlman speculated the family wanted to protect Pac's peace, no circus, no Graceland, no tourist attraction. The remoteness made privacy possible. But it gets even crazier. The rest of Tupac's ashes were scattered across multiple places: Los Angeles, Georgia, South Africa, and the Pacific Ocean. And yes, the outlaws really did smoke some of his ashes mixed with marijuana at a memorial, just like Pac said in his lyric. Cremated, last wishes, smoke my ashes. Moprim confirmed it. I guess we were trying to feel close to him. Pac always talked about it. Suge Knight backed this up in a recent interview, saying the family passed around a bag with Pac's ashes the night he died, though Suge didn't take part due to probation. But the book reveals far more than the grave. Perlman tracked down the real-life survivor of Brenda's Got a Baby, now 33, the girl thrown down a Brooklyn trash chute, and reunited her with her mother. He uncovered how Tupac shadowed crack kingpin Bobby Burton for a week to prepare for his role in Juice. He details the infamous poetic justice drama where Janet Jackson demanded an AIDS test, and Pac flat-out refused, even telling friends to curse her out. The book documents Tupac's lifelong guilt over the 1992 Marin City tragedy, where his gun discharged and killed 6-year-old Q.I.D. Walker Teal, a moment that haunted his music forever. There's the heartbreak of his father Billy Garland not showing up for a prison visit, something Pac described as having my heart carved out. And then there are the 100-plus love letters to high school girlfriend Mary Baldridge, showing Pac's gentle, poetic side. But Perlman also exposes the contradictions, how the same gentle soul who moved ladybugs off sidewalks became what Death Row's Mob James called a wannabe thug. A damn wannabe. Pathetic. The book captures Pac's final days at death row, broke, isolated, and desperate. Even the car Suge gave him was leased. Co-star Lella Rashan rejected his advances, saying, "I don't feel like getting shot." Perlman paints Pac as a profoundly isolated, beautiful spirit whose craving for validation pushed him into beating down Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand, the moment that set off the chain of events ending his life. Meanwhile, while Perlman was uncovering Pac's past, his family was locked in a present-day war over his estate. In January 2022, Sekiwa Shakur and the Tupac Shakur Foundation sued Tom Whalley, the former Interscope executive Afeni appointed as trustee. They accused him of straight-up embezzlement, treating the estate like his personal piggy bank. The allegations claim he took over $5.5 million in excessive compensation since 2016 and installed himself as head of Amaro Entertainment, controlling all things Tupac. After installing himself as Amaro Entertainment's manager, Tom Whalley created what Sekiwa Shakur called a massive conflict of interest. She accused him of withholding Tupac's personal items she legally inherited to cars, jewelry valued at $217,700, gold records, clothing, even arcade and pinball machines. These items were later used in the Tupac Shakur "Wake Me When I'm Free" exhibit without her consent. Whalley fired back, claiming he had increased the estate's value by tens of millions, largely through that very exhibit, which he insisted was Afeni Shakur's original vision. He argued he had absolute discretion under the trust. He called the embezzlement allegations disappointing and detrimental. A judge ordered a full accounting by June 30, 2022. Sekiwa slammed the report as woefully short, saying it was filled with vague categories and missing real itemization. She requested an independent CPA audit, accusing Whalley of running a hide-and-control strategy. But lawsuits weren't the only storm surrounding the Shakur family. Their attention shifted to Keefe D's repeated claims, made in his 2008 to 2009 federal proffer, his 2018 documentaries, his 2019 memoir Compton Street Legend, and numerous interviews, that Diddy allegedly offered $1 million for Tupac's death. According to Keefe D, Diddy contacted him after the Quad Studios shooting, delivering the message through associate Eric Zip Martin. "I'll give anything for those dudes' heads, a mother ****ing million." Diddy's name appeared 77 times in 2024 court documents and 47 times in a 2025 DEA transcript. Diddy has consistently denied the allegations since 2008, calling them ridiculous and completely false. Police have repeatedly said he was never a suspect. Still, Maureen Shakur told the media the family is asking very pointed questions. If Attorney Spiro's investigation uncovers evidence, they will pursue criminal charges or a wrongful death lawsuit. As of now, there are no public breakthroughs, but the fact that Tupac's family hired one of America's top litigators says everything about how seriously they're taking Keefe D's claims.
Do you believe Keefe D when it comes to Puffy? Like when he make comments and say that, Puffy was scared of Tupac and Suge, so he would use him as protection when he came to LA, and how Puffy put a bounty on the death row chain for $1 million.
As explosive as these revelations are about Tupac's remains and the estate war, they're only the appetizer. They set the stage for the even wilder conspiracy theories and legal tangles that have kept this case alive for almost 3 decades. Let's talk about the elephant, or should I say the ghost, in the room, the mother of all conspiracies. Tupac Shakur is still alive. The Cuba theory. The most famous claim insists Tupac escaped to Cuba to live with his aunt Assata Shakur, the Black Panther fugitive granted asylum there since 1984. The theory alleges Fidel Castro helped smuggle Pac out. a body double was used. The Nation of Islam facilitated transport. Pac fled by helicopter the night of the shooting. Over the years, supposed sightings surfaced. A 2016 photo with Rihanna, photoshopped. A Somali man claiming to see him in 2018. Locals in rural Cuban towns reporting him. In 2018, filmmaker Michael Nice claimed he had audio of Castro sanctioning the escape. Suge Knight's son posted in 2018 to 2019 that Pac was alive in Malaysia posing with Beyoncé and 50 Cent, later admitting it was promo content. Other locations included New Zealand, after a 2011 PBS hack. New Mexico, on a Navajo reservation. East Africa, supposedly with Yaki Gaddafi. Brazil, where memes claim he's alive in furry form. Ruto's mansion in Kenya. On September 29, 2023, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a 60-year-old former Southside Crip and uncle of Orlando Anderson, was arrested during a morning walk in a SWAT-style takedown caught on body cam. He was indicted for murder with a deadly weapon with gang enhancement, accused of being the shot caller who launched the retaliation hit. Here's where the case gets insane. Keefe D. literally provided his own evidence. In 2008 to 2009, during federal proffer sessions, he admitted being in the front seat of the white Cadillac. He said he obtained the .40 caliber Glock and passed it to the back seat. He suggested Orlando Anderson pulled the trigger. He claimed Diddy offered $1 million for the hit. Then he doubled down in 2018, Death Row Chronicles, Unsolved. 2019, his memoir Compton Street Legend. Interviews with Vlad TV, Art of Dialogue, and others. He even wrote, "One of my guys from the back seat grabbed the Glock and started busting. Tupac chose the wrong gang." But after his arrest, he told ABC News his own confessions were fiction, made for money and entertainment. He claimed he never read his own book. Co-author Yusuf Jah wrote it himself. The statements were fabricated. He believed immunity protected him everywhere. And, "They can't even put me in Las Vegas." Because he was reportedly 300 meters away in Los Angeles with 20 to 30 witnesses as an alibi, questions around his credibility grew quickly. Even his own son accused him of lying. Former LAPD detective Greg Kading, who interrogated Keefe D in the 2000s, publicly criticized him for repeatedly changing his story and making public confessions after receiving a proffer agreement. According to Kading, Keefe D undermined himself. Keefe D later argued that investigators mishandled evidence and asked, "If I was so dangerous, why did they wait 27 years to charge me?" His statements have shifted many times over the years, driven by book profits, interview money, a belief he was protected by immunity, and later desperation after his arrest. Because of these contradictions, prosecutors have argued successfully that all of his recorded interviews, book excerpts, and public statements should be admissible in court, since he broke the terms of his proffer by going public. In January 2025, his legal team filed a motion to dismiss the case, claiming the decades-long delay violated his rights and resulted in lost evidence and deceased witnesses. Separately, in April 2025, Keefe D was convicted in a jail-related assault and in September 2025 received a 16 to 40-month sentence to be served concurrently. From prison, Suge Knight, serving a 28-year manslaughter sentence, commented on the arrest, saying he was shocked, would 1000% refuse to testify, and insisted he knows who the real shooter was. He implied the wrong person was charged and stated it was not Orlando Anderson. Tupac Shakur's family expressed relief that progress was finally being made, but continued to voice frustration at delays. That frustration led them to hire prominent attorney Alex Spiro to investigate alleged links involving Diddy, separate from the official criminal case. As of November 10, 2025, the trial is scheduled for February 9, 2026, with no further delays announced. Keefe D has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors continue to push for all of his interviews and proffer statements to be admitted into evidence. Former detectives like Greg Kading say that, if convicted, the verdict would officially close the case historically. But until that verdict is reached, the murder remains technically unsolved. To understand how the investigation reached this point, why this murder happened at all, and why it took nearly 3 decades for someone to be charged, you must go back to the rivalry that set everything in motion, the East Coast-West Coast feud, and how Tupac's friendship with Biggie Smalls transformed into a conflict that resulted in both of their deaths.
Yeah, that's why it goes down to the chain snatching. When the people were saying, when the people first tried to snatch the chain, rumor back then that it was a bounty on that chain. That Puffy was saying, we want to put this chain in in our video, and that's why the guys try to snatch the chain, and they didn't get the chain, and that's why Pac really took off and just started, you know what I mean, and fighting Orlando, because Pac look at it like, this is my beef now.
The widely accepted explanation is that Tupac Shakur was killed in a gang retaliation attack after he and members of Death Row Records assaulted Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Hours later, a white Cadillac pulled up beside Suge Knight's BMW on the Las Vegas Strip and opened fire. But that was only the immediate trigger. Tupac's murder was the violent culmination of a 2-year conflict between the East and West Coast hip-hop scenes, a feud that Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G. became the faces of, and ultimately, the casualties of. What began as regional competition grew into a high-stakes corporate and gang-affiliated war involving money, music labels, and street politics. Hip-hop originated in the Bronx in the 1970s, creating a deep sense of East Coast pride. By the late 1980s, West Coast gangsta rap exploded after NWA released Straight Outta Compton in 1988, bringing Compton street life into mainstream music. Tensions grew in 1991 when Bronx rapper Tim Dog released F*** Compton, directly attacking NWA and West Coast artists. Dr. Dre fired back on The Chronic in 1992, escalating the rivalry. Behind the scenes, the record labels intensified the divide. Suge Knight's Death Row Records, launched in 1991, had direct ties to Bloods through Knight's own gang affiliations. Bad Boy Records, launched in 1993 by Sean Puff Daddy Combs, relied on Southside Crips for security. Radio stations, magazines, and music media often favored the East Coast, which many West Coast artists believed downplayed their success. In this environment, label conflicts weren't just business, they became gang conflicts with financial and personal stakes. The tragedy is made even more profound by the fact that Tupac and Biggie began as close friends. Both were born in New York, Tupac in Harlem in 1971 and Biggie in Brooklyn in 1972. They met in early 1993, at a time when Tupac was already an established star with albums like Tupacalypse Now and films such as Juice. Biggie was still an emerging artist. Tupac welcomed him into his LA home, mentored him in the studio, offered career guidance, and even let him sleep on his couch. Biggie once asked Tupac to manage him, but Tupac advised him to stay with Puff Daddy, saying Bad Boy would make him a star. In August 1993, Tupac gifted Biggie a bottle of Hennessy before a performance in Maryland. Biggie later described Tupac as a genuine friend. Everything changed on November 30, 1994. That night, Tupac arrived at Quad Studios in Manhattan expecting to record with Little Sean. In the lobby, he encountered members of Junior Mafia, Biggie's circle. Moments later, 3 armed men attacked Tupac, robbing him and shooting him 5 times. As he was carried out on a stretcher, he saw Biggie, Puff Daddy, and Lil Cease upstairs. Their calm reaction convinced Tupac they were involved or had prior knowledge, allegations they denied. The very next day, while still bandaged, Tupac was convicted in a separate sexual abuse case. His anger deepened. In February 1995, Biggie released Who Shot Ya? Although recorded months earlier, its aggressive tone felt like a taunt to Tupac. Biggie insisted it had nothing to do with the shooting, but Tupac didn't believe it. In an April 1995 Vibe interview from prison, Tupac accused Biggie and Puff of celebrating his shooting. The 1995 Source Awards intensified the hostility. On stage, Suge Knight took a direct shot at Puff Daddy, and later, Snoop Dogg confronted the hostile East Coast crowd. 2 months later, Suge Knight posted $1.4 million bail for Tupac and signed him to Death Row Records. Tupac responded with an explosive wave of music and diss. From late 1995 into 1996, both coasts exchanged increasingly aggressive responses. November 1995, the Dog Pound filmed New York, New York, featuring scenes of kicking over NYC buildings. Their trailer was shot at during filming. December 1995, New York rappers including Capone and Noriega, Mobb Deep, and Tragedy Khadafi released LA, LA. March 1996, Tupac released All Eyes on Me, including California Love and 2 of America's Most Wanted. June 4, 1996, Tupac dropped Hit 'Em Up, arguably the most aggressive diss track in rap history. He accused Biggie of infidelity, threatened violence, and mocked Bad Boy. The video included actors portraying Biggie and Puff being humiliated. By this point, the conflict had moved far beyond music. It had become personal, financial, gang-affiliated, and dangerous. Biggie reportedly broke down in tears after hearing the track, but still hoped for reconciliation. He refused to respond directly. Some believe he addressed Tupac with subliminal lines on Long Kiss Goodnight, released in 1997, but the song didn't come out until after both men were dead. The rivalry had become deadly because it blended corporate competition with real gang infrastructure. Death Row Records was closely aligned with the mob Piru Bloods. Bad Boy Records, meanwhile, hired members of the Southside Compton Crips for security, some of whom were connected to Orlando Anderson's uncle, Keefe D. In Los Angeles street culture, stealing a Death Row medallion was considered a serious provocation, potentially punishable by death. When Orlando Anderson was accused of taking one, it set the stage for the confrontation at the MGM Grand. Tupac, who frequently wore blood-red clothing, had already escalated tensions by publicly threatening Bad Boy and the Crips. When he and members of Death Row assaulted Anderson on camera just hours before the shooting, the situation became combustible. From late 1995 into 1996, both coasts exchanged increasingly aggressive responses. November 1995, the Dog Pound filmed New York, New York, featuring scenes of kicking over NYC buildings. Their trailer was shot at during filming. December 1995, New York rappers including Capone Noriega, Mobb Deep, and Tragedy Khadafi released LA, LA. March 1996, Tupac released All Eyes on Me, including California Love and Two of America's Most Wanted. June 4, 1996, Tupac dropped Hit 'Em Up, arguably the most aggressive diss track in rap history. He accused Biggie of infidelity, threatened violence, and mocked Bad Boy. The video included actors portraying Biggie and Puff being humiliated. By this point, the conflict had moved far beyond music. It had become personal, financial, gang-affiliated, and dangerous. Biggie reportedly broke down in tears after hearing the track, but still hoped for reconciliation. He refused to respond directly. Some believe he addressed Tupac with subliminal lines on Long Kiss Goodnight, released in 1997, but the song didn't come out until after both men were dead. The rivalry had become deadly because it blended corporate competition with real gang infrastructure. Death Row Records was closely aligned with the mob Piru Bloods. Bad Boy Records, meanwhile, hired members of the Southside Compton Crips for security, some of whom were connected to Orlando Anderson's uncle, Keefe D. In Los Angeles street culture, stealing a Death Row medallion was considered a serious provocation, potentially punishable by death. When Orlando Anderson was accused of taking one, it set the stage for the confrontation at the MGM Grand. Tupac, who frequently wore blood-red clothing, had already escalated tensions by publicly threatening Bad Boy and the Crips. When he and members of Death Row assaulted Anderson on camera just hours before the shooting, the situation became combustible. For years, Keefe D has claimed that Sean Puff Daddy Combs offered a $1 million bounty on Tupac's life, a claim he says was relayed through Crip associate Eric Zipmartin. Whether this allegation holds any truth or was invented to sell books remains contested. But what is clear is that the atmosphere of threats, pride, and gang alliances meant the MGM fight was not simply about a stolen chain. It was about enforcing Death Row and Blood's dominance over Bad Boy and Crips. The shooters in the white Cadillac were not merely retaliating for Orlando Anderson. They were responding to the entire East Coast-West Coast conflict, settling a war in a single drive-by attack. 6 months later, on March 9, 1997, Biggie Smalls was murdered in Los Angeles in a strikingly similar drive-by shooting, a case that remains officially unsolved. Many believe it was retaliation involving Suge Knight or blood-affiliated individuals. By 1997 and 1998, efforts to end the conflict intensified. Minister Louis Farrakhan hosted peace summits, and Snoop Dogg and Puff Daddy appeared together on The Steve Harvey Show in an attempt to publicly close the chapter. Gradually, the rivalry faded as hip-hop evolved into an era of cross-coast collaboration, but the impact remained permanent. The East Coast-West Coast feud did not literally pull the trigger on September 7, 1996. The Southside Crips did. But the rivalry loaded the gun, aimed it, and created a world where a single casino altercation between blood-affiliated artists and Crip-connected gang members could end the life of one of the greatest musicians in history. That is why, even with Keefe D now in custody awaiting a 2026 trial, even with Jeff Pearlman's revelations regarding Tupac's burial, and even with nearly every fact publicly dissected, the streets still debate what truly happened. The truth is unsettling. Tupac Shakur died over the same gang politics and corporate warfare that he rapped about throughout his career. And the so-called Resolute.